The market jumps off a cliff and forgets its parachute, falling 7% in 3 days. Is this the end of the bull market? This is Invest with Jacob. Okay, guys, so I take a vacation for a few days and the market absolutely loses its mind, falling a touch over 7% in just 3 days. They finally found some footing at 41.96 and started bouncing from there. Now we have some key levels to watch to see if the bulls are truly in danger of losing the overall market. I'll get into that in just 1 second. But first, if you're new here, welcome to the show, guys. My name is Jacob Gabbard, and this is Invest with Jacob, where we use Elliott Wave Theory to break down the SP500 and the NASDAQ. I highly encourage you to hit that subscribe button down below so that you can get our daily S&P updates, our trade setups, and our buy alerts. All right, guys, with the market dropping so sharply off of the push higher, we now have some key levels to watch. So let's jump into the charts and take a look. Okay, guys, so here we are on the 1-hour futures chart for the S&P 500. And if you remember last week, the count I was leaning toward as my primary count was the black count, which is where this was the A wave down. We got the B wave up and then C down. And it's kind of like looking like that's what's playing out. So we got our move down to 1. I said I was looking for a move up to the 4,500 region. Okay. And then a push down in wave 3 that should be a pretty strong move down. Now, to be honest, I was not expecting a move this strong this fast. I was expecting the depth of the fall. That wasn't that shocking, but the speed at which it happened was kind of interesting. So we pushed up towards that 4,500 region, and then we got the move down. You would expect wave 1 of 3, okay, to hit this 0.5 to 0.618 fib that you see here. That's a typical target for a wave 1 of 3, meaning this little bracketed one of this big bracketed 3 down here. And it pushed just below the 0.5 here. And then we started to get a bounce, and typically this bounce is much bigger. It would have been up into this region here, but we got a pretty small bounce, and then a slice down through the pivot all the way down to 41.96. So in this case, it's a pivot down, so we're going to start from the top here, and we draw our line down to the bottom of wave 1, and then up to the top of wave 2, and that's this set of fibs I have over here on the far right, okay? And so it pushed down to this 0.5 fib, gave us a little bit of bounce, and then the pivot is the 0.618 to 0.764 fib of waves 1 and 2. So we pushed down in 1, up in 2 for our fib extensions, and this 618 and 764 are the pivot. And that comes in at 43.37 to 42.97, and now this becomes a very important level for us. Because we've pushed down through the pivot, okay, and past the 1.0 extension here at 42.31, we found our footing at 41.96, and now we're back up at the pivot for wave 4 of 3, testing the pivot. We would expect wave 4 of 3, okay, to hold the pivot. And since we didn't quite get down to the 1.236, it should push up into the pivot a little bit. I'm looking at like the 43.15 region for this, but it definitely should hold the top of the pivot at 43.37. A move above the top of the pivot, okay, makes it likely that this black count isn't going to play out the way we think it is. So we should expect it to hold the pivot, then come down in wave 5 of 3 down towards about 4,100, okay, and then get a wave 4 bounce up to about 42.31, and then finally a final push down towards 39.55 to 39.25. So if we look at the count, guys, the ABC itself targets the 1.0 extension at 39.25, and the wave 1 down and 2 up, they target 39.55. So 39.25 to 39.55 is our support range for this move down, should the black wave play or black count play out as we have it on the chart. So again, for the black count, we need to hold the pivot 42.97 up to 43.37. Okay, and then expect a move down towards around 4,100, then a move back up to about 42.31, and then finally on down towards that 39.55 to 25 area. And if the pivot breaks to the upside, okay, then we might be looking at the red count, and that could be trouble for the bulls. So the red count is a sentiment shift. It is a end of a bull market count where the 5 waves down are off the all-time high, and that indicates a shift in sentiment if we're going to do that. Now, before you get all panicky, I don't think that this is going to be the count because of a few things that we'll go through. So off the high, instead of this being a wave 4 down, okay, it would be wave 1 in red here. So instead of a 3 up at the top, that would be a 5 to complete that move up to the all-time highs. And this would be wave 1, okay, down in red. The move up, okay, here would be wave 2 in red. And then we would be starting wave 3 of red down. So again, to get where your targets are, you would draw from the top, which I did. I drew from up here off the screen, down to the bottom in 4, which you can see the dotted line coming down here, and then up to the top of 2 to give you your targets. So as you come down, you would expect wave 1 down here of 3, wave 1 of 3, to hit either the 0.5 or 0.618 fib and bounce. So if we come down here, it hit basically the 0.618 fib and started to bounce up. Okay, so that is a good target for wave 1 of 3. My issue is that this move down is not really an impulsive move down if you count it from the top to this fib down here at the 0.618. It could be a diagonal, and it has played out as a diagonal. That's how we would have to count it. So if you're counting the move down off the top for this red count, you would have a wave 1 in this spike down right here. You would have a wave 2 in this spike up here, wave 3 down here where the 1 is, wave 4 where the 2 is. Now the problem is this 2 top overlaps this 1 top, which typically in Elliott Wave makes it an invalid count unless it's a diagonal. And in that case, then this can play out. And it did come down and hit the 618 fib and start to bounce from there. So there is still potential for this to be a valid count, but I don't love it. Okay, it's still going to have to prove itself to me because this structure over here is incomplete. It needs another high, in my opinion. And this structure down off of this red 2 here, in my opinion, is not impulsive unless it's a diagonal. And then in that case, it could potentially be impulsive. So if that is the case, okay, and we are looking at the red count, you got the 0.618 hit here, and then it's started to bounce. So what we would look for here is an A, B, C, and you'd look for it at least up here to the top of this wave 2 area, and then you would start to see wave 3 of 3 to the downside. And if this is the red count playing out, guys, that wave 3 of 3 is going to be pretty monstrous. So you would look for, again, we got the wave 1 down, you would look for a move to blow up through this black pivot and all the way up towards this 4510 area, 450910 area around the top of wave 2 because of the strong reversal of diagonals. Then you would look for a pretty strong move down starting around 4500 and heading for the red pivot here. So for the red count to play out, we're looking for a bounce up in wave 2 of 3, okay, up towards this area and then down through this pivot, the red pivot, which comes in at 4195 down to 4091. So we would look for 3 to come down through this pivot through 4091 to give us confirmation that we are in this bigger move down and have a minimum target of 3925 for wave 3 of 3, okay, and a next target down and a more common target of 3758. All right, so the red count, again, is going to be a sentiment shift if that is the case, where this move down in 4 is the red 1, this move up is 2, and we are starting 3 down where we would expect a bounce to continue from here up towards 4500 and then down through the red pivot at that point towards 3925 to the 3700 region. So I'm not sold on that one. It's really going to have to prove itself to me as a count that I'm going to believe in, but it is possible, and if that happens, we are looking much lower. So the final count, guys, and this is more of a Hail Mary than anything else for the bulls, but it is technically still possible. It is still technically possible that this is all of wave 1, and we can get a wave 2 here as long as it stays above this low over here. However, it has pushed through the 764 retrace, which means it's very likely to come down and test these lows at some point after a bounce, whether it's a smaller bounce in the black count or a bigger bounce in the red count. But it is still technically possible for this to be a wave 2, and then we would see the start of wave 3 higher in blue. Okay, again, that one is kind of a Hail Mary for the bulls, but until they break this low, it is technically a viable option. All right, so that's what's going on the S&P 500. Over on the NASDAQ, We've pushed well below that 764 fib, which usually means we're going to go down and make a new low. We've already challenged and tested the lows once here and bounced, and I think that we will get a slightly higher bounce here and then another push lower towards that 12,500 region for the NASDAQ. We do still have the Hail Mary here, wave 2, like we do on the ES. However, I don't think that that is a very likely scenario at this point, given how deep we have pushed down and the structure that we have here. It looks much more like we are going to head lower in another push. Guys, if you like the information that I put out in these videos and you want real-time market updates from me, you need to check out investwithjacob.com. There's a link down in the description. Go ahead and click that link and it'll take you over to my website. Once you get over there, check out our membership plans. Okay, we have 2 amazing plans and they both come with a 7-day free trial. The reason is I want you to get in there, try it out, make sure you love it, become part of our trading family before you ever spend a penny. We have 2 incredible rooms. The first one is my Invest with Jacob room. In that room, you get all of my market updates, you get all of my buy and sell alerts, as well as all of your Elliott Wave questions answered. We trade the SPY and the QQQ, and we swing trade them, so our trades last anywhere from a few days to a few months. Now, if you're looking for day trading as well as individual stocks, you need to check out PT's Throne Room. Okay, in there you get everything you get in the Invest with Jacob room, as well as individual stocks, day trading, and PT's reduced risk binary method that absolutely crushes the market. You really need to see it to understand how powerful it is and how he uses it to absolutely kill the market. He has an exciting new program in there. Okay, he started a challenge account with about $4,000 in it, where he's trading mini ES futures and averaging 3 to 4% gains per week. So if you want to learn trading on a smaller account, if you want to learn trading in general, if you want to get better at trading, you need to check out the Throne Room. He absolutely kills it in there, and we would love to have you in there so we can make some money together. All right, guys, key takeaways for today. We're going to see how this bounce plays out. They've reached the pivot here on the ES. We expect the pivot to hold if the black count is going to play out, anywhere from 43.15 or so up to the top of the pivot at 43.37. However, if it does move through that pivot, we need to see how it plays out on the bounce and if the red count starts to come in play. If the red count's going to come in play, we'd look for a much bigger bounce back up toward the top of this spike here, as this would be a diagonal, and you would expect a big, strong reversal in that regard. And then you would look for a push down through the pivot to confirm that we are in the red count down. Over on the NASDAQ, okay, same type of thing. We're in our push up here. We are looking for a final push down towards 12,500. All right, and we do have this Hail Mary wave 2 here on the NASDAQ as long as we're above the lows, but not very likely for that to happen. So we are looking for another push lower on the NASDAQ towards 12,500. All right, guys, that is the market update for today. I will talk to you tomorrow.